Hey, what is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Dominate Behind the 8 Count. My name is Dominic Franco, and I'm your host, and today we have a very special guest who is very close to my heart. She's actually one of the reasons why I'm here today. She is an 8-time collegiate national champion coach. She is an ICU World's Jazz Champion coach, and also a USASF and IASF contemporary and lyrical director. Please help me welcome my coach from when I was in college, Erin Alvarado. Hey, Erin, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, first of all, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited just to talk about everything right now. And also, I think this is also very special to me because I've been wanting to dive deep about the change of the dance world and really where we think it's headed. But it's really cool when we're in moments like these because my world has changed from 2016 when I first made the team and you were my coach to even
Mhm.
now where 9 years later, whoa, that was weird to say. Okay, I'm old. Okay, that was,
How do you think I feel?
okay, touche. But really, because you're not old though.
No,
No,
no. I
absolutely
mean,
not.
I
Yeah.
started at Texas Tech when I was like, I don't know, 24,
Okay, I
25.
thought
I was
I
young when I
I was gonna
started.
guess 25, so I wasn't
hmm
sure. Okay, yeah.
hmm
But no, thank you so much. This is so
hmm
exciting, and then this is just really special because I think this is also a moment for me to reflect on like how much my life has changed and like how dance has changed through my dance world, but like I'm so excited to even talk about because I feel like we also at different times have had very similar paths to get to where we are now with like the we were studio based a lot of our time growing up. Yeah, we were very much like I know for myself, dance team didn't come into my life until I made the team in 2016, and
And I was a junior in college when I started dance team, so
it's
it was
just so
almost
crazy.
exactly the same.
It's oh my, actually I didn't know that. You were a junior too?
Uh-huh.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. I didn't know like yeah, and it's so crazy how like preparing for auditions back then to doing recruitment now, like there's so much that has changed. And so before we dive deep, I want to take a moment to let you introduce yourself and just give us a little bit more about like your connection with the dance industry right now.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, you kind of like start weaving into many different avenues when you're in the dance world, which to me makes you the best educator is when you can have different outlets and different inputs. So, along with everything that you already said, I also teach in the dance department here, which is where I met you. I'm going to my 14th season at Texas Tech, so I've been teaching here for probably 24 semesters or so.
Wow. Wow.
And I got really lucky a few years ago and got to create the Anatomy for Dance class here, which I'm very passionate about because I was a physiology major in college and not a dance major in college, even though I think that there's extreme value in that. And
Absolutely.
then, obviously I speak at a ton of conferences. I think that everyone's opinion of me and what my forte is probably a little bit different than my own. Because I obviously don't love public speaking, but I tend to talk a lot about leadership. I talk a lot about incorporating purposeful technique into pieces. Obviously, the judging component, since I do judge a lot for, a bunch of different brands, studio and dance team as we get into these conversations. So yeah, just kind of, diving into all the different aspects of dance that affected me. Like you said, I was a studio kid up until my junior year of college. I did concert dance in college first. That was like my first thing out of studio. And dance team was not really a thing when I was growing up. There wasn't that at my high school, so it was something that I didn't know the difference. And I think that played into my success because I don't treat it differently than I treated my whole upbringing in dance. Similar to you, you use what you know and you use what you've learned, and then you teach it to other people and figure out a way to get all these people on the same page. To me, it's like the puzzle of dance team that I love. It's about figuring out how to fit the pieces together, which obviously doesn't have a lot to do with dance, like the actual movement of dance. But from a team perspective, that is something that I'm extremely passionate about.
I love that. Yeah, and you already touched on right now so many great notes about just the dance world in general. How like I myself too, I treat it all as the same. Yeah, I don't compartmentalize like dance team and then studio team technique. Like it's the technique is a technique, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
a tendu should be a tendu no matter what. It's not a different tendu just because we're doing dance team, right? we did
It's
we
really funny when you say it out
yeah, no,
loud.
no, truly though, absolutely, and that's why people like Dom, like especially with Dominate Technique, they're like, "Oh, Mr. Dom, you're the dance team guy," and I go, No. I mean, it's a realm of it, but I teach jazz technique. It is commercial jazz technique. Again, I didn't create a Shanae. I'm definitely not going to take the credit for it. So, like, why would I?
Well, it's also funny because it's like 2 years of dance team for you, then leads into like professional contracts, which are not dance team. Then you circle back into being on a professional team. So it's kind of like, again, this like hodgepodge. So it's interesting that people identify, I think because dance team has taken off, which I'm
Yes,
really happy about that it's getting the recognition that it deserves because these dancers have trained their whole lives,
absolutely.
trained hardcore to be at this level. And so I love the attention that it's getting, but it's been interesting how with the attention has come like this, segmented looking, kind of the way it looks. And I just, it's hard to understand how we got there so fast. That it became like its own brand of dance when we all look at it and we're like, this is jazz.
No, it's all that is so true because I feel like it like one day I woke up and I was like, no, no, dance team now, and I'm like oh, okay, like I didn't realize. Okay,
It happened
we're here.
fast. Yeah.
It did happen so fast, which is so interesting to then talk about the change of where we were before that brought us here now. And so you, especially because you started actually coaching, correct me if I'm wrong, right after you stopped being on the team at West
Mhm.
Virginia, and so you went from athlete straight to coach for 2 years, and then straight from two national championships to then Texas Tech, which where you built that program up. And I even from when I was on the team till now, the team is so different. So like how when from when you first started coaching to now, how have teams changed, especially from what you've seen as a coach? Like how has that changed on your end?
I think for me, starting so young, when I was at West Virginia, while I was their coach, I was also still their peer. And so from a coaching perspective, I feel like I could still do everything that they were doing, and I could demonstrate and I could do those things. So from a coaching perspective, obviously you become a better educator, I think, when you can't demonstrate everything. You have to be able to communicate it in a way that your dancers trust you.
Absolutely.
Like I'm
Yeah.
not over there demonstrating it all, but there's a trust that my dancers have in me that I can teach them how to do it. And that's where I think, my background in just the human body has really helped me become a relevant coach beyond the time that I could actually do what my dancers were doing. It's crazy. Like when I was at West Virginia, I was like, let me just do the nationals dance for you full out so you can see the performance.
No, like seriously, like I was still doing
Crazy.
like after I graduated, I was still doing like our turn sequences, everything too. And
Mhm.
like now, especially when I started to dominate, I think I told you this at one point. Everyone came to me for flexibility. Flexibility. I can't even do all my splits. So I've never been able to do a middle split. So like when I'm like teaching these leg turns, but it does force you to have such a mind body connection with how to
Mhm.
then verbalize it to teach someone or coach someone because yes, I actually what I love to do probably most in my one-on-one lessons is flexibility implementation, doing the
Mhm.
leg turns, doing the penchés.
Don't you
Like
feel like part of that is like for me, why I fell in love with dance was like how challenging it was for me. Not, I was obviously good at it, but like it was like every day there was a new challenge. Every day there was something else that I could be working on. It was never quite there. Like you could celebrate these milestones, but it was never where you needed to be. And I think that like when you come up to something where you're like, okay, I'm not flexible, it's just another challenge for you to really research and pay attention to. And then inevitably you become better at other things because of your attention to detail in this avenue that maybe you had to work a little bit harder. And
yeah.
to me, it all ends up still latching together in one way or the other.
Oh, 1,000%. If you ask any of the dancers that I work with right now,
Mhm.
we're not doing all of these like repetition of like, okay, well, if you fall in your 540, like, dude, let's do it again. No, no, no. We are like starting with the foundation and taking time to actually go over the details and the basics and make sure you're doing it properly.
I also think that that is like if you're asking like one of the biggest differences between my dancers now and my dancers when I first started, I firmly believe that part of the biggest difference is social media. There's just so many things that they can use to get information. And when I was teaching or when I was coaching at West Virginia, it was like we had to wait forever for a video to upload. There weren't 60 videos taken in a practice or multiple angles, and it was just me. I think it's a positive, and then I think it offers up a little bit more of a challenge because I think students rely so heavily now on what it looks like. We're losing, or maybe not losing, but in allowing that to be the norm, I think we're losing the ability to just feel kinesthetically. Like where our body is in space. You can tell someone your right elbow keeps dipping, but it's almost like they don't understand it until they see it.
Exactly. Yes.
But that isn't how it used to be. So like even
No.
like the cleaning process and all these things, it used to be like it's almost like we have so much information now. I think that sometimes the dancers it, to overthink a lot because there's so much information that can be given to them now. I think that like that instant gratification that people complain about, I think that's part of it. Like I think sometimes dancers just want to know the quick fix. I just
Yeah.
had this conversation with the team the other day. I was saying, like, you struggle in turning, there's no quick fix. There's not going to be a light bulb moment that just fixes everything for you. If you're inflexible, you're not going to have a light bulb moment that all of a sudden you're just miraculously more
Yes.
flexible. So I
Yes.
think that if they can gain patience, and know that like these small mile markers or milestones are just as important as the big ones, you're gonna see. And then also sometimes you get to a ceiling, and then it plateaus a little bit, and then you have to figure out how to set a new goal. But I do think that dancers, at least my dancers, tend to like because I have so much information, because I am an anatomy and physiology, and I can try to figure out your body. They think I'm gonna be able to fix it in like a day,
Yes.
and that's not
Yes.
reality for
Yes.
anybody.
What you just said, actually, I feel that to my core because I also feel like in my lessons, some of my dancers come up to me and go, "Oh, hey, I have tryouts this weekend. Need to know how to do a toe touch." I'm like, if you're not getting off the ground right now, I'm not going to be able to get you off the ground in 4 days. What I don't know that there's not a
Mhm.
quick fix, but what we can do is in our weekly, in our monthly privates, go over the actual repetition of the corrections of how to
Mhm.
actually take the time to so you can feel those corrections and like that becomes the new muscle memory. And so that
Mhm.
over time it will lead up to all of the progress that we've made, then see it from like the year's difference, not a week's difference. But
And
it's not a quick fix.
you cannot bypass progression, and
No,
I think
no.
that like 540s are a prime example of that. I was teaching at our spring clinic. I wasn't actually the one teaching, the girls were teaching, but I was saying like this part of this is a progression to a 540, but this part is not. And until you can actually do all of these components, you really shouldn't even be trying a 540. Like you can't just go through, and then because then you're going to rep it out where you're going to have injury because you're just not doing it right and you don't have the patience. When if you would just be patient, maybe 6, 8 months, you can actually do it correctly. And then you can do it in transition. You can do it across the floor. You can do it in a dance. You're so much more confident and consistent with it that now if you're on a team, they can actually use it.
Yes.
You
Oh,
you doing it in an
absolutely.
audition video, which I know we'll get to, but you doing it in an audition video, but then I see you in person, I'm like, how many times did they do that before they could
To
actually
get that,
hit,
to get
and then it's like
it.
it's irrelevant. Not that you have to have a 540, but it's almost irrelevant to me because I can't use
Yes.
it. We can't use it in a team setting.
Well, and it's also like when someone, and my favorite one is the 9-year-olds, Mr. Dominic, I have my aerial. And I'm like, oh, show me. Well, I actually did it after, and I go, okay, so you did your aerial, which I'm still very proud of you for. You
Hmm.
did it and you landed it for the first time, and that is great. I don't count that as you having your aerial.
Have it.
Having it means you can warm up, obviously. Don't just throw it out if you're in jeans, but like
Unless you're
it.
you,
Uh,
then you can do it in jeans on the
And
beach.
then, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Mr. Dominic!" I go, the day that I lose my aerial, which I hope never happens, is gonna be the saddest day because
Uh,
that's like my go-to trick.
it's
Whenever
automatic, yeah.
but it's automatic, and like
Mhm.
it honestly, it humbles the kids when people are like, "Mr. Dominic," I go, "Uh huh," and they're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
you still can?" I go, I can still do something. I may
Mhm.
not be able to walk for 2 days, but I can still do it. But it's so crazy, and I laugh every time when they're like, I have it. And I'm like, no, no, you did it, which is still a great milestone to hit. But
Mhm.
until you have it consistently, where you can throw it at the end of a 2-minute nationals routine when you're completely gassed, the tank is empty, that's when you have it. That goes back to then taking the time to prepare and train your body to be able to do it. And with the change that like again that social media has brought to us with like what dancers are able to use as an asset and a tool to be able to, right in their pocket, look at a skill and be like, oh wow, I want to work up to that though. Um, I think that also comes with how people on, I would say like our end, that we are constantly looking at where they want to go and if it's part of the team, like if it's part of the Tex Tech Pom Squad, like I mean like what you're viewing what their skill set is and if that's going to fit into the puzzle piece for next year. However, the puzzle piece that you're looking for probably next year was is vastly different than what you were looking for 6 years ago when we first won our first national
It's
champion. Like,
different. It's different from year to year. I mean, that's where I think the recruiting process has helped because the social media component is great for what they bring from a dancing perspective. But for us to have time to actually be able to get to know these people, get to know their families and their teachers and their coaches and even their teammates, I think that has made like the personality and character side that evaluation so much better and more, there's more depth to it for
absolutely.
sure.
Oh, absolutely. And so taking that and looking back on the past right now from your experience with coaching, like, have you noticed a change in what you look for in the dancers when you're looking for someone to be a part of your team moving forward?
I think so. I mean, when I first started at Texas Tech, it was more like I needed people that knew that we were serious about moving forward competitively. I think that back then it was more like I don't want people who just want to do game day. I need to have people that also want to compete. It's funny to say that now because now it's more like, are you finding the right people? Obviously, they're all talented. It's no longer like I need this level of talent to be competitive. Now it's more like, is there still a deep desire for them to learn and get better? Because I think once you get to a certain level, some people think like I can just coast. And there are programs for that. It's not ours, but like there are programs and there's nothing wrong with that, but like I'm such a teacher and educator that like coming in and thinking that you know it all when you're 18 isn't going to work for me. But also like I think there's other things now because oh gosh, there's so much I could say about recruiting, but
We'll get there, I
I
promise.
know. I now am looking for people who genuinely want to come to Texas Tech. I think that's like it's almost flipped. Like before it was like we had to get to a certain level of talent. Now it's like I want you to know why you want to come here. Why what stands out about this place. And so I think obviously with the way recruiting goes that it makes that a little bit easier because you can kind of tell their level of are they passionate about coming to Texas Tech or are they interested? Back in the day, it was like you could already go to school here and then be on our team later. And because of the way things have morphed now, I'm not saying that's impossible, but it's definitely less likely.
Oh, 1,000%. And I mean, I look back on when I was trying out for the team. Back then, I was already at Tech. I had transferred the year before. I was in your
Mhm.
jazz class the semester of tryouts. I was able to just wake up. I mean, I didn't. I promise I prepared. But I could have just woken up the day of tryouts and go, hey, I want to go. And
Mhm.
maybe see if I can make the team and be there for the entire tryout weekend. But nowadays, it's not like that anymore. Like
Mm-mm.
a lot of really competitive schools are now going to recruitment models. And I think because of that, there's also a change in how dancers are now preparing for auditions and recruitment models. Because I know myself, I didn't have to go through all of that recruitment. And so how I trained was my studio training. There were
Yeah.
not all these combines that I could go to show myself, to train, to learn about the dance team technique, quote unquote. And like there were no classes on how to do a toe touch. There were no classes on
Mhm.
like it was just I translated what I took growing up on how to do a center leap and applied it to both feet at the same time and
And
off of
that's,
two
I think,
feet.
I think that's where maybe there's like a little bit of a misunderstanding to some extent. I think completely getting rid of your technical training, meaning ballet class, especially ballet class. And I think dance team gets this rap of like it's really sharp and it's really hard hitting and I think that then we lose like the ability to understand like do you actually understand where your port de bras comes from or are
Yes.
you just mimicking? And I think sometimes dancers regress like when they focus so heavily on dance team technique and it's like sharp and hitting and all these things, to me, you're focusing on palm technique. I think most of us still value a really great jazz dancer who can take a ballet class and know the terminology and not look so uncomfortable and out of place when they get into the ballet class and have a relationship with their body as like a form of movement that you lose when you just focus on the sharpness. Really, your technical training, if it's at the level that it probably would be, if you're in training in a studio your whole life, that should translate. I understand preparing for the video, but the video is like across the floor jazz progressions to me. It's not so foreign that it's you're speaking a different language. And I think that that's where like to me I always say there are like three things, I might not remember them all, but there are three things that tell me if someone's technique's where I need it to be. One is are they prepping heel toe? Gone. Like done. When they roll to the floor, are they pointing their feet and articulating their lower body out of a jump,
Yes, yes,
or a turn?
please.
And then just the control of their port de bras in general, like hyperextending and all that. Like those three things, if you have those three things, your training is pretty solid, in my opinion. And I watch all these like kids on social media trying to do all these challenges and all these things, which I love. But even on our team, I'm like, y'all actually have to go work on like doing it to post it so you're within the timeline, great, whatever. But where real growth happens is when you take these challenges and go back to the studio and actually work on smoothing out the transitions, understanding the weight shift, all these things. That's where real growth happens, not just checking it off on a list, which is how we look at videos. I think some kids have a hard time when they get cut or they don't get on to the next round because I could do everything. I checked every single box and all these things. But if you're not showing the refinement and you're not figuring that out, or even just creativity, just showing your level of training, because how do you show your level of training in a soda shaw? It's kind of like the really minute details, the transitions, the clarity in the landing. Like there, you could go on for days, but I think kids tend to, and even people that are putting the videos together for them, think about like the peak. How many times did you get around? But I do think that that's like a little bit of a misconception that harms kids when they're, and that puts a lot of pressure on them instead of thinking of the video as like kind of like what you said about this, like we're just talking, we're just
Yeah,
having a conversation. That's how I
yeah.
see those videos. Like obviously every coach is different.
Well, and I completely agree because when I'm doing my lessons for Dominate or my classes for Dominate, it's great the dancers that come in and they're like oh, I'm a turner. And I'm like, that's great. And they do it and then I see their shoulders are slumped over.
Hmm.
Or their port de bras not resisted is kind of just there. They're not really using it to its full potential to
Hmm.
keep the centripetal force and keep that elongation and spiral with it. Like it's those
Hmm.
little things where that could be something that like yes, you may get around 8 times, but if there's 10 people and they all get around 8 times, but there's that one or two dancers that are actually, engaging, pressing to a full releve, lifting from the core, their rib cage is not open. Like that is the difference, especially nowadays when everyone is good. Everyone
Yep.
is already
Everyone
at,
is good. That's the
everyone
thing.
is
Like when you
good.
get cut, it's not because you weren't good. When you look at that list, assume everyone can do it. What's going to make you different? What's going to make you stand out at the level that we need? Like body language, presentation.
1,000%. And because of that, have you noticed a change in the way that dancers are approaching auditioning and recruitment too? And really like how on your end too, I guess this is the two-part question, like how has the recruitment model also changed the way that you look in finding the dancers for your team as well too? Because there's so much that goes into this.
I I think that like I'm not saying I'm in the minority. I think everyone does a lot of the same things, but I prefer when dancers know their audience. I think colleges know what they're looking for more so now. I think when we first all started recruiting, it was kind of like we don't know how many videos we're going to get. We were kind of like scrambling to fill the space. But I almost feel like the tables have turned now and kids feel so uncertain about their path forward that they're desperate, that they just want to be wanted. They just want a program to show them a like or a follow or instead of like genuinely looking at it, what coaching style am I going to thrive under? What team environment am I best suited for? Where can I actually contribute in more ways than just my dancing? Which game day style really stands out to me as far as like atmosphere or integration? Like, do I even care if I do football or am I really passionate about doing it? Like these are questions that I think are more important than how many UDA championships this team has or if they compete at UDA or NDA or DTU or whatever it is. I think that like the kids kind of sometimes get wrapped up on the wrong things when it comes to like the intangibles. That's not an end all be all, but it is if the dancer, if I'm like trying to make those final decisions.
Absolutely, for sure. And I've even been asked with Dominate too, with just the dancers that I've trained, whether they want to continue dancing at all or they want to continue dancing on a D1A for a D1A school. The question that I just feel like I get the most of when it comes to a dancer that is really looking to compete at the collegiate level for
Hmm.
a university is how do I even begin as a parent to help and support my child through this recruitment process where it is still very new. It is still something that the dance team world is getting used to right now. And there are so many questions. I know I had a lot of parents that were like that. I feel like 5 years ago, I just said, okay, cool. Do you want to go to the tryouts? Great, awesome. But now with recruitment, there's just so much that goes into it. They feel like they need to go to every combine. They feel like they have to go to every single clinic. They feel like they have to go to every single summer intensive. And so it's just so I can understand how it can be very overwhelming. So
Absolutely.
do you have any advice to not only current dancers right now, but like to their family and the parents, their guardians on how to really go through a
Their
recruitment
dance
process?
teachers, their
Absolutely, for
high school
sure.
coaches. I know
Yeah.
it's probably so hard that your dancer wants to be gone every single weekend for the entire
Yeah,
fall.
it's so true.
I get it. I totally get it. I've been there so many times. The first thing that I would say to parents is to instead of always asking you, Dominic, questions or whoever's helping them or the coaches at the programs, ask your kid questions. Like ask them what's
Yes.
important to them. Ask them
Yes.
why they like
Yes.
that school. Why do you like that program? Because those are the questions that the coaches are going to ask them. So I feel like you're prepping them, but also getting information yourself to help you navigate. Nobody knows your children better than you do, or nobody knows your dancer better than the teacher. No one knows the teammate better than the coach. Like there's so many people that are kind of involved in that process, but I think asking them questions also helps them answer those questions because I do believe that kids are very easily influenced by TikTok or by a national championship or a top 10 finish or a bowl game or a national championship in football or basketball or where they get to go or look they got to perform with so and so, like whatever it is, you still have to like where you are, the town, the school, the major. I mean, you're in class more, you're working on class stuff more than you're working on team stuff. But there's just so many things that I think don't aren't necessarily different than just choosing a college. I don't think that you have to go everywhere. I think that if you do the research on the back end, there's things that I think end up being the deciding factor that kids don't think about from the jump. So their parents are spending all this money, they're traveling all over the place. They're missing a lot of their, requirements at home for these things and then they get there and they're like, "Oh, I couldn't do this anyway." And then also going, like when you're a sophomore in high school, go to your local stuff. Go to your local school. Even if that's not any, like I know for me, I did not want to stay home. That is not what I wanted to do. But I could have gone to schools that were like one day, get there, get back, even just like a training day or a clinic and something that's not 4 days long across the country,
Yeah.
just to get a feel for like I think that starts the ball rolling, just like competing at a regional gets you ready to compete at a national. Like there are things that I think that you can do within your proximity, especially when you're younger, like you're saying. Like no coach is gonna be like, "Oh my God, they went to this clinic when they were 12. They're never coming here." Like none of us actually think that way. But I
could
do
you
think that
could you
like
imagine?
people do feel that way that there's so much pressure to not post or do I post? What do I post? When do I post? Do I say that I was here? Do I not say that I was here? Like to me, it's like do what feels right to you. If you're posting for the right reasons, it's not usually a deal breaker, you
Yes.
know?
And I love that you said what you said about the research. If you've done your research but ahead of time too, you know what the program expects of you to post. Are they doing the turn challenges?
Another thing that I love about the dance team world now is that like coaches are staying in their roles a lot longer. When I was first starting, it was like every year, every program was having new coaches. But I think the resources, obviously, we have more of, and then just the spotlight, we all have way more opportunity to supplement, in different ways. But, like all of us are really interested in finding the right fits for the right kids at the right places. I don't know how many times I've said, I think you would be a better fit at whatever school. I know we all compete against each other at the end of the day, but we're not beyond above. At least I'm not above helping a kid find the right place
Absolutely,
if
for
if it
sure.
comes to me right away.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I 100% agree with that because I couldn't even count how many times I've told parents and dancers, like, hey, like, this is also your education, right? You have to like the school. Again, Lubbock, Texas is not a big city, it is a dust city, right? So if that's a
Mhm.
big problem for you, you're not going to enjoy your 4 years here while you're getting education. Oh, what if the school doesn't have your major? Like
Mhm.
that's your life afterwards. Like there's so
Yep.
many things that also play into that that is more than just. And I know like obviously like, we're here for dance, we're here for the love of dance too, but the experience while you're doing it for the 4 years also
I
play a
think
big
if you
part.
ask almost any college student that was on a team what their favorite things are, in the top three, you might have nationals, but it's not going to be the only thing. It's going to be like the relationships, the memories, the travel, like the buzzer beaters,
Yes,
like
yes.
it's going to be those like core memories. But there's like so many different things that is going to stand out. A lot of the times it's the relationships that you make. And or like for me, if I say like the thing I miss most, I really miss doing the fight song. Like at West Virginia, that's something that I really miss. I'm a diehard West Virginia fan. But off of that too, like as far as like what schools are looking for and all this stuff on recruiting, one of my other big pieces of advice that I tell dancers, there are tells. Like every program has tells of like if you're on their radar or not, especially once you're a senior. And I've seen so many kids go through heartbreak because they've been told, and I agree with this to a point, like if I work hard enough, I can achieve anything that I set my mind to. Which is true up until a point, but programs only have, 4 to 8 spots usually. But I've seen so many kids end up not even being in like a school that they had in their top 8 because they couldn't see past this top school that they wanted or like these top 2 schools. They get told no by both and they haven't even thought of a backup plan. But like if they're not following up with you in any way, that to me is like a sign that maybe that's not the door's not completely shut, but are there other avenues that I need to be exploring while I still have time?
I mean, it's a hard thing to navigate right now with just like, but it is also being cognitive about what is realistic, especially when it comes to your senior year, about okay, what are the options? And also, again, I just always go back to this because I know myself would dominate. I want my dancers to succeed in whatever avenue that they're doing right now, but also what is the right fit for them. And just because it's not one of the top 5 schools doesn't mean it's going to be any less of an experience. It actually might mean that okay, you might actually find what you're looking for
Mhm.
at that moment too,
It's a
because
redirect,
yes, it's
and then
just a
you're where you
redirect.
actually fit and where you're going to
Yes,
succeed and be successful and
yes,
feel confident and, just
absolutely.
all the things.
Well, and I think I don't mind exposing myself right now with this. Like I know that it's looking back when I tell people, oh yeah, I'm a Texas Tech Pom Squad alum. They're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, okay, first of all, very different Pom Squad now with what I was back then. Like, no, we're gonna get to that back to that in a second. Yeah, we were still doing only team triples. Yeah. Okay. And it's so different. However, and I know that this is a privilege having honestly what I feel like was just right place, right time for me. This is kind of like a butterfly effect for me, but like really, most people don't know that I was actually at Point Park first
Hmm.
in a modern and jazz concentration, wanting to do like literally concert work, like, and it just wasn't the right fit for me, and I didn't realize that until after I was already there, which I was like at the in that moment, I was like, wow, I feel like I just wasted not only my first semester of college, but my senior year where I thought this is where I need to be because of
Hmm.
XYZ reasons. And then I just happened to go to my brother's graduation at Tech and was like,
Hmm.
there's a feeling in me right now. If there's ever been a moment where it was like, deep down in your gut, like what was a gut decision, that was one of my biggest gut decisions. That's been the biggest asset and blessing of my life because I wouldn't be where I am now. And so like it's just my point to this is like what I thought was no, I need to be here because Point Park at the time was one of the top 2 schools of the nation for a dance program for a BFA. Like I have to do this. Something else, which wasn't even on my radar, and it probably should have been, led to the biggest bless. I mean, it led to my career. So I'm just like,
Hmm.
I really only tell that story to the dancers that come to me like they're so headstrong of like, no, I need to go here, and I'm like, but have you thought about anything else? Because
Hmm.
yes, I understand that all these schools are getting all these trophies right now, but again, if if you want to go to Minnesota but you don't like the cold, I have really bad news for you. Like I have terrible
Yep.
news for you, girl.
Yep.
And it's just so true that there's just so many different things to think about right now. And so and the process itself, like do you think that the process itself actually also differs from like team to team and like coach to coach with how they're doing the recruitment module now and like how they're doing the tryout process now?
I think most people are doing the same things. Like I think everything's going to feel very familiar, from school to school for the most part. I think the bigger differences are like when you have schools that are doing hybrid still, where they still have a tryout, but they also primarily do recruiting. The thing that is probably the most different is how people fill their roster. Like we're all looking at a lot of the same kids, but somebody that I'm like, that is not a good fit here for whatever reason, could go to another top 10 school and be very, very successful. So you can see what I mean about like it's not usually the dancing. I mean, sometimes it is, but most times there's something that we can't put our finger on, or we just really love this person. Kind of like we said about tech, like that first initial feeling a lot of the times, or like somebody really vouched hard for you that I trust or that a coach trusts. I know that's like those relationships, which we talk a lot about in college. I think in high school, maybe it's not stressed as much that these people are your network. And when it comes to recruiting, like what your high school coach says about you matters, what your studio teachers say about you matter. If my friend who works at this competition saw you backstage and you were awful to them, or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe you were very kind and very humble and you took class really well. People pick up the phone now. I feel like with recruiting,
Absolutely.
there's more like information on both sides. Like the dancers have more information, but so do the coaches,
Yes, absolutely. No, I completely agree. And I think that's also a really good mindset. What you just said right now, that's a really great thing to just keep in mind for dancers too, is like yes, they have access to all these new skills, all these new progressions, all these things, all the teams at the touch of their fingertips just to look up and review and really study. You guys have that same as well too. Like you
Right.
guys do have oh, hey, I actually know the owner of your studio. You didn't know that, but and
Mhm.
if they tell me that you're a drama queen, or if they say that like it's the whoever show where you think it's all about yourself, that also gets back to us. But also,
Mhm.
what does get back to us too is, oh, no, 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 they're also a great human being. They're not only a great athlete, they're a great human. Everything can get back now as well too. So
Mhm.
that I think that's really, really great for just like young dancers to know just in general right now. And so,
Be a good person.
honestly,
Like
just be a good person. And I
that's like the first step.
yeah. Well, and that actually reminds me the amount of times that people have asked me for advice, like one piece of advice to just be like, what would you say go like especially like sophomores nowadays, like
Mhm.
starting the recruitment process or even
Right.
freshmen being like, what would you say? I go, be genuine. Just be
Mhm.
yourself.
Because that, like to me, I know when I auditioned, I didn't audition when I interviewed at Texas Tech. I remember, like, how I am. I like to think I'm extremely truthful. Like I usually don't say anything that I don't mean. And that's how I feel about the recruiting process too. It's like the more genuine you can be, the more likely it is that you're going to really love the place that you are. The more that you feel like you're putting on a show and you're having to be something that you're not, can you sustain it?
Oh,
We
for
talk about this
sure.
with pro dancers all the time. Like you're going
Yes.
to pro auditions and maybe you got to a certain level of fitness, or you were doing your makeup a certain way or your hair a certain way, or you were executing things that you really can't do or you can't sustain. It's not going to be an enjoyable process for you because you're going to constantly have to show up as someone that you're not.
Absolutely. And when they're genuine, I feel like I'm gonna sound like such a Gen Zer right now. The vibes are just on. Like the vibes are right. But it's
Yeah.
true. Like when you are your genuine, authentic self, the coaches, everyone can see that. Yeah. And it makes them go, oh wow, no, this is who they genuinely are. Not, oh, they forced that conversation to make me like them. But the genuineness is just then not there. Like
Right.
you want to be like, okay, like are you also gonna represent not only this program, but the university well?
Hmm.
The double T is the same, whether you're on
Hmm.
dance team or you're not. Like you're
And I
representing the
can't be
everybody.
everywhere.
Exactly. It's like, are you
I
also going to
have
be
to be able to
genuine?
trust you. Hmm.
You have to trust that they're going to be their genuine selves, like they were when you first met them to a fourth year senior on the team.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
whatever. And like you want to be able to trust them all the step of the way. And so, with that being said, like what would be like one piece of advice that you would say is your kind of like go to, or something that should be really stressed for young dancers who are looking for a future in the college dance team realm?
I feel like there it's about your individual development more than it is about being ready to be on a college team to me. To me, if you're fall, especially if you're young, like the number of people that have emailed me like my daughter's, 9. I'm like, let her be 9 and like trial and error and exploratory and figuring out what genres she likes. Sometimes you don't know what's your thing until you're 14 or 15 or 6, like you haven't really found your path. So how are you supposed to figure out what you're going to do 8 years from now? Like I
Absolutely,
feel
for
like I feel
sure.
like it kind of has to be like be where your feet are, and then look forward and prepare for the future, but don't try to live in the future. Like that's weird to me. Like acting like you're already on these teams or like you're putting pressure on yourself. I have to be on this team instead of focusing on what you can control in that moment to put yourself in the best position possible to be the best candidate when you're graduating. So I think this idea of like I'm 14 and I am going to XYZ university. It feels like your life could be completely different at that time. Like maybe just focus on being the best at what you're doing right in that moment and then grow from there. And then when time comes, whatever you're prepared for is where you should guide towards instead of trying to get to your senior year and all of a sudden now you're pushing. So that's my advice. Like 2 feet down, really like soak up everything that you can, especially if you're in like ninth grade or 10th grade. Like, don't constantly look for the next best thing. My second piece of advice would be to find people that you can trust that are going to be honest with you, that are going to celebrate you when you need to be celebrated, but also are going to tell you when you're not there yet. And that doesn't mean to like put all of your self-worth into that, but I think that's actually a way to cushion the blow a little bit and redirect before it
Yes.
becomes all crushing and consuming, you know?
Completely. I completely agree with that. And I just feel like everything that we touched today is so important. And I really hope that like the young dancers now can really digest these conversations that I want to have with Behind the Eight Count because it's just, again, just good to know moving forward in the world that is still so new because of the new recruitment models and everything too. Like, I mean, and also like the coaches are probably navigating it freshly themselves as well too. So like just I want these conversations to be something that we can look at right now and be like, okay, where are we at right now? And how can we help each other navigate? Like, how can their parents help their dancers? How can coaches help each other find the right fit for them? There's just so many great things. So thank you for like, I mean, all these conversations. I love it so much. And before we move on, I have a surprise.
Oh gosh.
Yep, I think it's so important to kind of look back on where we've all come from too. And so I do have a little surprise.
Oh my God. Like my senior year headshot. Oh Lord.
So, again, I love you so much. Remember that.
Mhm.
I would love for you to like reflect a little bit and reminisce a little bit,
Mhm.
if you don't mind me also being here for this. And
Mhm.
like, can you explain a little bit more about life at the time during this picture and kind of
Mhm.
like your feelings and thoughts now looking back on this and really how far your dance journey has
Right.
come since then?
It's so funny because, not to get into the details of my upbringing as a dancer, but I've always been really, really competitive, just as like a human being. Like my best friend would be like, "You always said that you didn't study for the test, and then you'd get 100." Like I was just competitive about like I wanted to be the first one in class, I wanted to be the last one to leave. Like I was always that way, and so. When I was this age, I probably thought that I was going to be, I know I wanted to own a studio. I know that that was like a big goal of mine back then. And I don't know if I think it was because I was like second best always growing up. I think that also fueled my competitiveness. And it was also my duet partner, so it's like we would go back and forth and we were really great friends. It wasn't toxic or anything like that, but I was definitely, or at least I always felt second best. So that fueled me when I got to college. I went into my ballet class. You've heard this story before. I went into my ballet class at West Virginia at the time. They didn't level you. So, like, everyone started out in beginner and then you moved up. And so I remember going into ballet class my freshman year, first semester. And first thing, you did demi plies and then we did tendus. And the teacher came right up to me and said that I was doing them incorrectly. And I will never forget it. I remember leaving and like calling one of my friends, like, I can't believe it. Like, I was the best person in that class. This just speaks to immaturity, but I was the best person in that class. Why is he focusing on me? I don't get it. And now, when I reflect back on that, I'm like, clearly they were paying attention to me because I was working really hard and I was a good dancer and I had a good foundation. And I think sometimes dancers think when they're getting, or even my dancers now, if there's a hard practice, like, she was on me the whole practice. That's because they see potential in you, which we all know. We can say it all the time, but I vividly remember that. But I got into an environment at West Virginia where I was celebrated a lot. Um, and that gave me like a confidence that I didn't have when I was growing up. But also it allowed me to try things that maybe I wouldn't have ever done. But my first year at West Virginia, I was doing tryouts and we had to do a solo. And I'll never forget, I did body language, which you've done with me.
Ah, yes.
I did body language, and in my head, I killed it. And I was already kind of overcoming this like confidence issue. And the general consensus was that the people that were already on the team didn't really want me on the team. I was a junior. I was coming in, not having been on the team with them for the last 2 years. And I remember there was like a unspoken boycott and nobody clapped for me except for the other incoming freshmen. It was the worst feeling in the world. It was terrible. And it sounds so minuscule, but like at the time when you're 20 or 19 and you're working your butt off and dance etiquette says that you clap when people finish, like, I stress that in my classes too. But I think that that has like changed the way that I coach.
Absolutely. And I love that. I mean, because like I told you earlier, when I look back on my audition video or when you're looking back on this picture right now, like, uh, I mean, obviously the past influences to where we are now currently, right? It brought us to where we are here. But there are so many things that we bring with us now. So that's why I love these little moments. So sorry for
Mhm.
that little surprise, but
It's
but
okay.
it's so fun because like I will still watch our prom routine from my senior year.
Hmm.
Like I just
Hmm.
rewatch everything because it is I just love that it's such a great reminder of how far we've come. Like I
Hmm.
look at myself and I'm like, okay, baby Dominic, who still didn't know how to point his foot fully his senior year of college, still somehow you put me center. I blame that on you, I'm not gonna lie. But
I didn't choreograph the dances.
that's so true. That's so true. But I was like, I look back and I go, wow. I even right now as an instructor now, as an educator, I love looking back to see what I do implement into my teachings now that I either decided to change because of XYZ or to keep implementing because I know that those are the moments that made me feel like most confident. And I want my kids to stay humble, but also be confident in their abilities right now, especially with dance just being so competitive now. I personally believe it's so good to always look back and just see how far we've come. But this does bring me to my last question, which is, in your opinion, then, where do you think the future of dance is headed? And just what are your general thoughts about that?
I I think about this a lot. Obviously, I'm very lucky that I get to coach dance team, but I also have taught and teach in studios. And I judge in All Star, I judge in college, I judge in high school. Those are all dance team. I judge in studio comps. And then I get to work in the dance department, which is obviously far more concert focused. So I get to see so many different avenues of dance. And then when you have your alumni working in various capacities, I'll like pick your brain about what's happening in this or what's happening in this. And so I think getting to see all of that makes me feel like I'm gonna use contemporary as like when I was in college it was there's only modern ballet, jazz, contemporary has kind of taken over a little bit. But I think what you're seeing in dance often is like one genre will influence another where they become fusion. So you see a lot of fusion dance now where like it's a hybrid of multiple styles or genres kind of morphing together or influencing. I mean, how many jazz dances have you seen to hip hop music? Or like I just feel like there's so much like woven in and out, even acro coming into dance more, which is an interesting conversation because like when I was growing up, we always did acro. So it's interesting to me that it's such a hot topic now, which is a story for a different day. But like anyways, that's how I feel like dance is in general. I think something that I love is that I think that there's more understanding and appreciation for the areas of dance that people aren't living in right now. Dance team obviously used to have a stigma. I don't feel that way as much anymore. I think social media has helped a lot. I think a lot of studio kids not wanting to necessarily go the conservatory route and not that there isn't a place for that. There are just more kids now dancing for longer, which I love. So there's more options. And so if they don't want to dance in conservatory, they feel like they can do dance team and still dance after college like you did. You didn't have to be a dance major to have a dance career. You can. I think it just depends on the avenue, but I love how things are intersecting. You might have a BFA dance major go be on a pro team. You
Yes,
might like
yes.
it's interesting to me how everything is overlapping. You have studio conventions now having dance team teachers, and you just kind of you see like this fusion happening, which I think just benefits everybody. I think it creates a more supportive environment, a less exclusive environment. But I anticipate that like kind of crossover fusion just makes dance even more popular. Like I think people feel like it's more accessible and that they can do it too. I think that when you're gonna maybe have less burnout because people can shift. like if they're getting burnout in one avenue, they have opportunities that are similar but not the same.
I love that because there is something to be said with like the fusion that's happening right now. Yeah, is it going to keep progressing? Are we going to find more like individual lanes? Like it's the road that we're leading towards is, I mean, no one can tell, right? It's just
Hmm.
how it actually goes, but I think it's super fun and interesting to kind of take a step back and take a second to be here and just see, okay, this is where we came from, where are we headed to, and how do we prepare for that, right? And I think that kind of goes
Yeah.
back to like, I think that goes back to like what you said earlier with like advice of what you would give dancers is
Hmm.
just be where your feet are. Just
Hmm.
how about focus on the training, focus on your individual training, focus on not comparing yourself to every single other dancer, but the dancer you are today, and then just try to be a better dancer tomorrow. Yeah, and just keep
Yep.
striving for what your personal goals are, and whatever the change that is coming, you'll be prepared for. Yeah, with
Hmm.
whatever it is. And
Exactly.
so,
Same thing with the recruiting situation,
yes,
you know, like
yeah,
as things shift, if you're just focused on how you can be the better version of yourself today than you were yesterday, you know, like that, then you're going to be prepared for what's coming for
yeah,
sure,
and
even
you're
not
already
knowing what it looks like.
absolutely, and then you're already going to be steps ahead. Yeah, you may
Hmm.
not be where you want to be yet, but that's okay. You're not in college yet. You're still in
Right.
high school, but you're preparing for it, so that's okay. Thank you so much
You're
for your
welcome.
time. I really appreciate this, and I really do think that these conversations are so not only just needed right now, but really educational for the parents and the dancers that really want to start this new journey. Like I'm thinking about like the middle schoolers right now that the parents are already getting anxiety about
I know.
how to train their dancers. So thank you so much. And everything that we talked about today, I think it's so important just to talk about, even just to have conversations that we are all having the same conversation and not 10,000 conversations confusing these
Right.
dancers right now. And so, and for everyone at home, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dominate Behind the 8 Count. My name is Dominic Franco, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.